This week on Street Riding American Style, David and Shelley head out to Geneseo, Kansas, population 267. We forgot to pack Si, so Shelley got out from behind the microphone and picked two cars that turned her head. So today we'll take a look at a 1972 Ford Mach I Mustang, a 1938 Chevrolet, a 61 Chevy Impala Sport Coupe, and a 1927 Ford Model T Roadster. These are all coming up on Street Riding American Style.
Support for Street Riding American Style is provided in part by BG Products Incorporated. BG Products Incorporated is dedicated to the development of preventative maintenance services in vehicles for consumers and fleets. In shops all over the world, BG Products provides the driving community with products and services of automotive maintenance. More information can be found on the web at bgfindashop.com. And Ren Radio. Ren Radio can be heard from the web on your computer or smartphone, playing oldies from the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. Oldies like Elvis, Chuck Berry, and the Skyliners, and many more. Nothing but oldies. Ren Radio is online all the time, on the web at wrenradio.net.
They make you look, dream, and sometimes even wish. These are street rods, built or just owned by those who have the same passion. My name is David Wolf, and along with Simon McCormick and Patricia Brown, we travel to admire these passions. These are works of art and are designed with the personality and the ingenuity of the owner in mind. Built in garages, barns, and even under shade trees in communities all across this great land of ours. This is more than just a hobby. This is an addiction. This is Street Riding American Style. Shelley, it's about time we brought you out from behind the microphone, take you out, and have you pick two cars.
You're right. It's been far too long.
Yes.
So where are we going?
We're going to Geneseo, Kansas.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
It will be.
You think Si's going to be jealous that I'm going and he's not?
Do you really care?
No.
I didn't think so.
Okay, Lynn, I was walking past and I saw this beautiful car. Being a Ford girl, I had to stop. And so I want you to tell me about what you've got here.
This is a 1972 Mach I Mustang.
In 1972, the average cost of a new house was $27,500. Digital watches were introduced, and Atari kicked off the first generation of video games with the release of Pong.
It is basically a stock car. It's my daily driver. It's what I take to get groceries in. So it's not perfect. It's got dust on it here and there. I just had to wipe the bird stuff off of it before we came up. But it's what I take. It is so cool to go to the grocery store and see the look on the guy's face that's taking my groceries out for me. When he sees he gets to put them in this car, he loves it.
You are a woman after my own heart, because if I had this car, I would drive it every day too.
Yep, yep.
So Lynn, you said you knew what you were looking for when you went shopping.
Right.
What made you decide on a Mustang?
Well, I wanted this era because I love the long, sleek lines of the old muscle cars. We wanted one that I could drive right now.
You got a muscle car.
Uh-huh.
Tell me, what's your definition of a muscle car?
It's long and sleek and it looks powerful, and I love the noise that they make. I love the feeling of getting on the entrance ramp on the freeway and I just fly. Starting it up in the grocery store, in the parking lot, and people look. There was just a kid driving his grandma. He was with his grandma driving a new Dodge, and he looked at this car and he looked at his grandma's car and he says, "I'll trade you."
Fabulous, that's great.
And I said, "Well, that'd be a close one, wouldn't it?" He never took his eyes off me. I got in the car, I started it up, I revved it a little bit. He just goes like this.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And I took off and he just kept on watching.
All right, so girl to girl, I want to know if you ever get any flack about driving a muscle car, because you know, it is supposed to be what the boys drive.
You know, I never really even thought about it being odd for me to like muscle cars. I grew up in the 60s. You know, my boyfriends, the guys I had crushes on, they all had muscle cars. And I liked them because of their looks, their power. So for me to get one isn't odd at all. It just doesn't seem odd at all. And my husband loves these cars too, and of course that helps.
Sure, sure. All right, Lynn, with that understood, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Can we hear this bad girl?
Oh my goodness, yes.
All right, so you're out in the shop, you just got your universal wiring harness, and you got to put this bad boy in the bad boy. What are we gonna do? You're freaking out. Don't worry, I got Tim Devlin with me here with Devlin's Rod and Custom. Tim is gonna tell us how this works and why it's not so much to freak out about. Tim, first thing I wanna know is, this electricity stuff in my car, is it really that big a deal? Can it hurt me? I mean, it's not 110 out of the house. What do I need to know here?
Well, you're right. It's not 110, but there's no question we can still cause some pain, and we can certainly set our car on fire if we don't know what we're doing. I don't want that to happen. We definitely don't want that to happen. So what we need to do is we need to take a little bit of a step back before we really dive into that wiring harness and understand what basic automotive electrical is.
There's going to be a lot of stuff in there that words like electrons and current and amperage and stuff, and I have no idea what this stuff is.
That's right, and most people don't. So what we want to do is we want to kind of learn what those things are.
Okay.
So let's talk about electrons.
Right.
Electrons is nothing more than a basic unit of electricity. Those are the things that are inside those wires that we want to push around and move around so that we can operate our device. We want our stereo to work, we need to move those electrons to them. So then we start talking about voltage. Well, what are volts? We hear about volts a lot. Well, volts are nothing more than the actual push, the pressure behind those electrons.
So Tim, what you're saying is it's kind of like the electrons are like water being pushed through a hose?
Okay, so the amps is the speed moving through that garden hose. So we talk about that water being pushed through by the voltage, and the speed that it goes through that hose is our amps.
So you've got pressure, now this is like the volume of the water.
How fast are they going through there?
Okay.
That's right, that's right.
Right on.
And then we start talking about things like resistance. Well, you think about that garden hose. If I start to kink that garden hose, I'm starting to add resistance to it until eventually we get it to where it's stopped.
Right.
Well, in electricity, when we stop that, we're creating heat, and that's where we can have problems in these cars.
And so fire's not good unless it's coming out the back.
That's right, that's right. And then another component is ground. You know, as we're flowing these electrons from our power source, we've got to have a ground. If they don't have a ground, they have no place to go.
Right.
So without the ground, we can't go anywhere.
So when you talk about ground, is that just something that's just going to be some more metal in the car? Is that all? Is it that simple?
Well, essentially, I mean, we do need a good piece of metal to attach any ground to. But having said that, when we go to the chassis being the best ground we can find, then we go down through to the engine and down into the body. But we also have to make sure that is good, clean metal.
Good, clean metal is a good start.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, well, that makes sense then. All right. Hey, guys, I tell you what. Get your stuff, sit down and relax, open up that owner's manual, and follow along with us, and the master here is going to teach us how it all comes together. Stick around.
Don't let anybody tell you that you can't build a fun street rod for less than $2,000. Jason did it, and it's totally fun. And it's next on Street Rodding American Style.
Okay, we're in Geneseo today. Cars are starting to show up, but I saw this. Now, Jason, tell me, what are we looking at here?
1938 Chevrolet.
In 1938, an average cost for a house to rent was $27 per month. The first use of seeing eye dogs was started, and Howard Hughes set a new round-the-world record of 3 days, 19 hours.
I see these little tires on this thing.
Yes.
Why did you go with small tires?
Cheap. They're very cheap. Very cheap.
Is that the big combination when building a rat rod?
Yes, it is. Yes.
How much money do you think you have in this?
Right now, probably $1,900.
$1,900. Yep. Drives down the road perfect?
Yes. No.
No.
Not so much.
Wait. You said yes. You said no.
Well,
why no?
It gets squirrely.
A lot of power because light frame.
I would say power.
How much power do you think you have?
It's hard to say. It's a little 355. It's 30 over 350. Big cam. It runs pretty good.
What is the unique things about this that people don't even notice or you wish they noticed?
All right. First of all, you notice the gas pedals and the brake pedals are wrenches, bent wrenches.
Right.
The doorknobs are actually wrenches that they're not. They've been relocated.
Let's go inside because we're close to the inside right now with those wrenches. The gas pedals being wrenches.
Yes.
But the floorboard and all the interior is made out of what?
Tags.
Tags.
Tags from all over the United States.
Where'd you get all those license plates?
Craigslist. We put an ad on Craigslist and had some people send them to me, so it worked out pretty well.
I see you have a driver.
Yes.
Where'd you get the idea for that?
That has actually been in the family for about 12 years. He hangs in my living room. His name is Charlie. He goes to every car show with me.
You have a skeleton hanging from your living room?
Yes, sir.
Your wife doesn't care?
No.
Matter of fact, she probably thinks there's more conversation coming from him, right?
Yes. Yeah, usually.
So everybody says, yes,
yeah,
usually. So you put him in the passenger seat when you're driving down the road?
He's usually with me, yes.
Kind of get people noticing again.
Yes.
It's all about getting them noticed, isn't it?
That's what this truck screams.
If I'm looking at the shifter, that's like a rat fake shifter.
Yes.
Did you just keep adding to it, or
Yes.
was that the idea to go that high?
We added everything to it, just little stuff that we found in my shop and just stuff we tore apart. We added all that stuff just as we went up, and that's how it ended up going.
All right, now Gage, I know you like this truck, right?
Yeah.
But I think you got your own right over here. Is that true?
Yeah.
Let's take a look. I want you to tell me what you got over here, okay? Come here for a second. All right, Gage, I'm looking at this thing. This is me. I love the stance on this, but it looks like an old school drag car.
That's what we're going for.
You were going for this? How did you get that look?
Straight axle.
So you got a straight axle on this. You got the skinnies all the way around. Where did the skinny tires come from?
Old school baby carriage.
An old school baby carriage, because that's really cool. I love the spoke wheels. Any future plans for this?
Put a big black Chevy in it.
A big block Chevy in this thing. You know, I think it'd work. And I think you'd probably burn the tires off this pretty easy, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So I see you got a rat in this. Why do you have a rat in this thing?
Put a rat rod.
This is a rat rod? So you're going after like your dad's truck, right?
Yeah.
It's a cool wagon, cool truck. Let's go back and talk to your dad one more time, okay?
Yeah.
Now, Jason, I'm looking here also. You don't have a still, but I see a lot of copper tubing. What's that for?
Wiring.
Wiring?
Headlight wiring.
What do you mean you're wiring?
All my headlights and everything run through that blanket.
So like a conduit?
Yes.
Where'd you get the copper tubing then?
My old house. That's all stuff recycled.
Ah, so you went in your old house, pulled it out.
Yep.
Now, is the house needing copper tubing now or not?
No, it's all PVC now.
Okay.
We redid it.
So it wasn't like, you know, say your wife didn't go to the shower and said, honey, the plumbing's gone.
There for a while she did.
But this was ready to go on the road.
Yes.
Well, I think it's great. Jason, can we do one more thing? Can we hear this bad boy?
Yes, sir.
That'd be awesome. All right, we've all been there. You're sitting there on the couch, you're listening to mama, but really you're looking on the cell phone, checking out your next hot rod, and you see this list that says, hey, all it needs is a new wiring harness, so what do? You freak out like I do, and you click to the next one, because man, let's face it, that is too scary to accomplish on your own. Nobody wants to do a wiring harness. So now, Tim, my little brain is having a hard time comprehending all this stuff. We haven't even opened up the big box yet. I'm sure that some of this stuff, the battery, I can point that out pretty easy. Wires and cables, I can find that pretty easy. What is some of this other stuff, man?
Well, you know, let's start with the battery though. The battery this is our power source. This is where we're getting all the power to power everything we've got here.
Without that, you're not going anywhere.
Absolutely not. So we need to make sure that we've got a good battery for our system, so that you've made sure that you've got the right battery with the right cranking amps to power your system. And then from there, yeah, we start talking about wiring. Wiring is terribly important, and it doesn't just go to this wiring harness. It's what are these big ones doing here? These are the ones that we're using our battery cables. They're very important. All too often, guys are using way too small wiring for what they're doing, what it needs.
When I get into the directions, it'll tell me what gauge wire I need.
Well, some of this stuff is all preset, but when it comes to things like batteries, you're going to look at somewhere between a 2 and a 2 all the way down to a 0-aught gauge. And then we say, okay, now we're going to take this power, and this is our standalone system, but then we also need to produce power as we're driving down the road, so we have an alternator.
Okay.
Now, this is more of a modern alternator that has is internally regulated, because remember, our vehicle system is a DC current system. It's a direct current, but an alternator produces AC, alternating current. So we need to be able to regulate that, and so that internally regulated or an externally regulated system will regulate that and turn it into a direct current.
Tim, you've covered a lot of ground here. To be honest with you, my feeble little brain is having a hard time wrapping all this stuff up.
Well, let's just do this. Let's back up a second and say, okay, we've got a single wire system. We're taking from our power source or our fuse panel, and we're running to our device, and then we're running to a ground. We have a protection system in line with all that. If we break it down into each system is run the same way and keep it one system or one circuit at a time, it keeps things simple. And oh, by the way, this wiring harness is going to do that for you. As long as you're keeping your system pretty basic and not getting into high-end stereo systems or tons of relays to control a lot of switches, then this system is going to be pretty simple and pretty basic with the instructions to outline that.
Okay, well that sets me at ease, man, because I tell you, there's a lot to take in here, and I'm really excited to see what else we got coming down the pike. Guys, check it out. We're going to get more into it when we come back next.
Sometimes 6 cylinders just aren't enough. If that's the case for you, do what Steve did. Swap it out for a small block V8. We'll show you what we're talking about coming up on Street Rodding American Style.
Okay, what caught my eye about this car was this beautiful flaming red color. Tell me, what's the name of this color and what kind of car are we looking at?
It's called Roman Red.
Okay.
And it's on a 1961 Chevrolet Impala 2-door sport coupe, otherwise called a bubble top.
In 1961, Pony Time by Chubby Checker was a big hit on the radio. My Three Sons was one of the top shows on TV, and Michael J. Fox was born.
Well, that was one of the things about your vehicle that caught my attention was the unique shape of the back window. Tell me about that.
It's called a bubble top.
Yep.
That's original to the car, and that's because of the curvature of the glass why they call it a bubble top.
Well, let's come back to the very beginning. How long have you had this car and what have you done to it?
I've had this car 30 years come August. I've had it repainted.
Really? Yeah, I thought it was a new paint job. How long ago did you repaint it?
29 years ago.
Really?
I've redone the interior. That's all original reproduction interior to it.
So it's correct for the period of the car, but it's new upholstery.
Right.
All right, Steve, let's go back to the exterior here. I really like the chrome pieces that you have on here. Is this original? Have you added any more?
Most of it is original. Down the sides and across the deck lid, that is all aluminum. It's not chrome, it's actually aluminum. And the other shiny parts are stainless steel. Now I've added the rocker moldings on the door handles. There's little chrome guards behind there. I've added those. And on the gas door, there's a little stainless piece around there. I've added that also.
This is the male version of bling.
Yes, it is.
Tell me about any stories, any fun things that you've done with your car. Had any close call with the law, anything like that?
No close calls. Just my son and I rebuilt the motor and transmission and put in it.
Oh, that's great. That's
kind of nice working with him to do that.
How great that you got to build that with your son. Tell me about the engine. What have you got in it?
It's a 283 with a 2-speed power glide.
And now, is the 283 stock for this year of car, or?
It is, but the car originally came out with a 235 6-cylinder 3-speed. We decided to convert it to a V8 automatic.
So Steve, what made you decide to switch from the straight 6 to the V8?
The 6-cylinder was getting a little weak, and I like a V8 with a little more power to it.
Now, you sure you haven't had any trouble with the law?
Plus, it sounds a little meaner.
Yeah, good. Well, I love the white walls. Personally, that's what I do. But what made you decide to go with those instead of just a regular tire?
Because that was original to this era of car.
Well, have you ever been tempted to sell it? Or has anybody ever made you an offer?
Never been tempted to sell it. I've had numerous offers, but this was my ex-father-in-law's car, and he was pretty close to my son, so when I'm no longer able to drive it, it goes to my son.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I would keep it too if it were me in that case.
Yep.
Steve, I've got one more question for you.
Sure.
Can we hear this bad boy?
Sure.
All right, boys and girls, I brought Ryan with me. He's another sensei here at the Devlin Rod and Customs Dojo, and he's gonna take over and show us what's next. Ryan, what are we gonna do?
Well, next step would be, let's open that box up and check out the wiring harness, and we can see what's in there.
Holy cow. All right, so we got headlight switch.
Right, and the nice thing about most of these aftermarket harnesses is a lot of them are designed like this, to where they're pre-labeled.
Yeah, it looks pretty simple so far.
And they're bulked up, and you know, your headlight wires are in a bag that says headlight and taillight wiring. And
so I got a big bundle of wires here. It says ignition switch and starter wiring kit.
Right.
So we're just gonna lay it out first, but not cut anything.
Right, you don't want to cut anything at all, and that way you can, you know, well, this isn't the best route, let's move this, or I don't like that, or, you know, because aesthetics, you kind of got to take that into play too.
Well, you said something that really kind of got me thinking, man. We're going to end up cutting stuff sooner or later. What kind of tools am I going to need to make these cuts? Anything special?
There's a couple special tools that you could use for some kind of oddball crimps that these come with, for like some plug-ins and removable connectors.
Now, do most of these kits come with the crimps and stuff that I'll need?
Right, yeah.
It does come with it? Okay, well, that's helpful.
Yeah,
that's
and
helpful.
there might be some miscellaneous connectors here and there you might need, but 90% of your connectors are in these kits. But as far as a normal crimper or some wire cutters or a wire stripper,
I can just go get the basics and I can get it done.
Yeah, there's nothing special about them.
Well, so how do you know whether to use just a regular old, you know, one of these bad boys, or if I need to switch to some heat shrink or even solder? How do I know when to where to do that?
And that's a good question, because every situation is going to be different. You know, these uninsulated, or excuse me, these are insulated, but they're not necessarily a weatherproof deal.
Right.
Like under a dash or in like a sealed apartment or anything like that, it's not a big deal. If they're out of sight, out of mind, and you're not concerned about them being super pretty, then these are the way to go. But if you're more worried for like aesthetics and you want it to look more pleasing to the eye, these don't have an insulation on them. And they still crimp the same, but you have to also install a piece of heat shrink on it prior to crimping it.
I tell you what, Ryan, you made me feel a lot better about all this, and I'm not really that scared to do it. And guys, neither should you be, because all you gotta do is open it up, read the directions, use your brain, lay it out, get some good connections like what we talked about, and if you get into a bind, come on down here to Devlin's Rod and Customs. I'm sure they could help you out.
Chuck's ride is themed upon military ordnance. Not sure if you know what a military ordnance theme is? Stick around. Chuck will tell us next on Street Rodding American Style.
Chuck, I like it. I don't know if it's called a rat rod. I wouldn't call it really a rat rod. But first off, what are we looking at here?
It's a 1927 Model T Ford Roadster.
In 1927, ranges were not only used for cooking, but were a form of heating. The first transatlantic telephone call was made from New York City to London, and the pop-up toaster was invented.
When I got it, it was 2 pieces of tin, the cowling and the seat box.
You told me earlier this was a 4-door at one time?
Originally it was a 4-door. This is the back seat. The front seat would have been another seat here, and then it would have been much longer.
So what you did is you took out the front section of the seats, you took the back seat, put it in, now it's your
forward.
front seat.
Right.
This seems to be going with a theme. What is the theme you were going with?
It's kind of a military ordnance theme.
Ordnance. When you say ordnance, what's ordnance?
Ordnance is bombs, rockets, ammunition, hand grenades, stuff like that. You know.
And I'm seeing that everywhere.
Right.
Where did it all start, the idea?
It all started right here with this housing to hold, which you normally don't see on a hot rod like this, windshield wipers.
Right.
And we built this little tower, and it was flat on the end, and I said, well, we can't leave it that way. So I stuck one of these. This is off of a 57 Chevrolet hood. You think about it, you see 2 of these on the front of a 57 Chevy. So I stuck that on there. Well, that looked like a rocket launcher, and that started the theme for the whole car. Well, then came the headlights.
And where those come from?
Well, they started out as 30 Model A headlights, but then I added fins, and so they look like bombs.
Yes.
See?
Okay, but I see a gremlin there at the...
Well, you know the story about the old airplanes used to have gremlins in them.
But tell me about that story. What is the story about gremlins and the old airplanes?
The old airplanes always had problems, and they always got blamed on the gremlin that was on the plane.
Yes.
There's the gremlin. There's my gremlin. See?
But that grill does not look like anything I've seen in the military or anything I've seen before on a car, but I'm trying to figure out where that's from. What is that?
That grill is I'm not sure of the year, but it is the Massey Harris Model 44 farm tractor.
Why'd you put that on there?
Because it looks cool.
Yes, it does. If I even go to the engine, you've got some kind of interesting things going on here. First off, you got the headers.
Yeah.
Baffled out or not?
They do have baffles in them because I run in some cities that require baffled headers.
Okay, so it is quiet.
No.
You're cheating, aren't you? So on the spark plug wires you have here, you got certain things holding these together and keep it in sight. What are they?
They are plastic shotgun shells. They're not the imitations that you can buy on eBay now.
Right.
These are genuine shotgun shells that I burn a little holes in the back and put them on there to separate my plug wires.
Keeping with the ordnance theme.
Keeping with the ordnance theme again, yeah. Another thing is you notice usually there's a vent on top of the cowling.
Yes, right there.
Well, I didn't have a vent cover. And so I thought, well, I got to have a place to put my gauges.
Yeah.
So my gauges are on the back of that little box that's replaced the cover on the cowling.
Because you don't need that vent.
I don't need the vent. It's a convertible. It's a roadster.
Yes. All the world is a vent to you.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I'm looking at the interior too here. Is that finished?
Yes, those are genuine Army blankets.
See, it works. Okay.
It's an old military themed vehicle.
Right.
They're military blankets.
So the upholstery is a blanket from the military.
Genuine Army blankets.
Love it.
And the back one is wool, and it itches like crazy.
Well, Chuck, I love the car. Can you do me one more favor?
I can try.
I think you know what I ask. Can we
do it.
hear this bad boy?
We can fire this bad boy.
Awesome. So did you enjoy your road trip?
Absolutely.
What did you find?
Well, being a Ford girl,
Right.
I thought I'd focus on those. But when I saw Steve's 61
Oh, yeah.
Impala, I had to stop and take a closer look. It was the bubble top that I thought was
Oh, yeah.
fascinating. Then I saw Lynn's 72 Mach I. I'm just a sucker for
Yes,
muscle
you are.
cars. How about you? What did you find?
Well, first I came across Jason's 38 Chevy. I really liked the stance with the small profile tires on the front. But then there was Chuck's 27 Model T. What I liked about his car was the fact that he sectioned it from a 4-seater to a 2-seater.
That was cool.
Well, it really was a good show. And if you want to see more good shows, join us again next week and see why street rodding is more than just a hobby.
It's an addiction. Support for Street Rodding American Style is provided in part by BG Products Incorporated. BG Products Incorporated is dedicated to the development of preventative maintenance services in vehicles for consumers and fleets. In shops all over the world, BG Products provides the driving community with products and services of automotive maintenance. More information can be found on the web at bgfindashop.com. And
Ren Radio plays your favorite oldies. Great oldies of the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. Great oldies from Elvis, Chuck Berry, the Skyliners, and many more. Nothing but the greatest music ever laid down on disc. Ren Radio is online all the time at renradio.net.
Good times, great oldies. WREN.